اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله. السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله. السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين وابن سيد الوصيين. السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة سيدة النساء العالمين. السلام عليك يا ثار الله وابن ثاره والوتر الموتور. السلام عليك وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليكم مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار. يا أبا عبد الله، لقد عظمت الرضية وجلت وعظمت المصيبة بك علينا وعلى جميع أهل الإسلام، وجلت وعظمت مصيبتك في السماوات على جميع أهل السماوات. فلعن الله أمة أسست أساس الظلم والجور عليكم أهل البيت، ولعن الله أمة دفعتكم عن مقامكم وأزالتكم عن مراتبكم التي رتبكم الله فيها. ولعن الله أمة كتلتكم، ولعن الله الممهدين لهم بالتمكين من قتالكم. برعت إلى الله وإليكم منهم ومن أشيائهم وأتباعهم وأوليائهم. يا أبا عبد الله، إني سلم لمن سالمكم وحرب لمن حاربكم إلى يوم القيامة. ولعن الله آل زياد وآل مروان، ولعن الله بني أمية قاتبا، ولعن الله ابن مرجان، ولعن الله عمر بن سعد، ولعن الله شمرا، ولعن الله أمة أسرجت وألجمت وتنكبت لقتالك. بأبي أنت وأمي لقد عظم مصابي بك، فأسأل الله الذي أكرم مكامك وأكرمني بك أن يرزقني طلب ثاري مع إمام المنصور من أهل بيت محمد صلى الله عليه وآله. اللهم اجعلني عندك وجيها بالحسين عليه السلام في الدنيا والآخرة. يا أبا عبد الله، إني أتقرب إلى الله وإلى رسوله وإلى أمير المؤمنين وإلى فاطمة وإلى الحسن وإليك بموالاتك وبالبراءة ممن أساس ذلك وبنى عليه بنيانا وجرى في ظلمه وجوره عليكم وعلى أشيائكم. برعت إلى الله وإليكم منهم، وأتقرب إلى الله ثم إليكم بموالاتكم وموالاة وليكم وبالبراءة من أعدائكم والناسبين لكم الحرب، وبالبراءة من أشيائهم وأتباعهم. إني سلم لمن سالمكم وحرب لمن حاربكم وولي لمن والاكم وعدو لمن آداكم. فأسأل الله الذي أكرمني بمعرفتكم ومعرفة أوليائكم ورزقني البراءة من أعدائكم أن يجعلني معكم في الدنيا والآخرة، وأن يثبت لي عندكم قدم صدق في الدنيا والآخرة، وأسأله أن يبلغني المكام المحمود لكم عند الله، وأن يرزقني طلب ثاري مع الإمام الهدى ظاهر ناتك بالحق منكم، وأسأل الله بحقكم وبشأن الذي لكم عنده أن يعطيني بمصابي بكم أفضل ما يعطي مصابا بمصيبته، مصيبة ما أعظمها وأعظم رضيتي في الإسلام وفي جميع أهل السماوات والأرض. اللهم اجعلني في مكامي هذا ممن تناله منك صلوات ورحمة ومغفرة. اللهم اجعل محيا محمدا وآل محمد، ومماتي ممات محمدا وآل محمد. اللهم إن هذا يوم تبركت به بنو أمية، وابن آكلة الأقباد اللعين ابن اللعين على لسانك ولسان نبيك صلى الله عليه وآله في كل موطن وموقف وكفى فيه نبيك صلى الله عليه وآله. اللهم لعن أبا سفيان ومعاوية ويزيد بن معاوية عليهم منك اللعنة أبد الآبدين. وهذا يوم فرحت به آل زياد وآل مروان بقتلهم الحسين صلوات الله عليه. اللهم فضاعف عليهم اللعنة منك والعذاب العليم. اللهم إني أتقرب إليك في هذا يوم وفي موقف هذا وأيام حياتي بالبراعة منهم واللعنة عليهم، وبالموالاة لنبيك وآل نبيك عليه وعليهم السلام جميعا. بسم الله. اللهم لعن أول ظالم ظلم حق محمدا وآل محمد، وآخر تاب له على ذلك. اللهم لعن الإسابة التي جاحدت الحسين وشايت وبايت وتابعت على قتله. اللهم لعنهم جميعا. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله، وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليكم مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعل الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. اللهم خص أنت أول ظالم باللعن مني، وابدأ به أولا، ثم لن الثانية والثالثة والرابعة. اللهم لعن يزيد خامسة، ولعن عبيد الله بن زياد وابن مرجان وعمر بن سعد وشمراه وآل أبي سفيان وآل زياد وآل مروان إلى يوم القيامة. اللهم لك الحمد حمد الشاكرين لك على مصابهم. الحمد لله على عظيم رضيتي. اللهم ارزقني شفاعة الحسين يوم الورود، وثبت لي قدم صدق عندك مع الحسين وأصحاب الحسين الذين بدلوا محجهم دون الحسين عليه السلام. صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
وعجل فرجه. The main guy has to go second one. He's our main guy. Second. محمد وآل محمد صلوات اللهم صل على محمد कहाँ जाए आखिर बयाबान हर सू शिकस्ता है पहलू अकेली है ज़हरा कहाँ जाए आखिर बयाबान हर सू शिकस्ता है पहलू अकेली है ज़हरा रोने पे पहरा मसाइब का सहरा अकेली है ज़हरा दरे फातिमा को जलाया है तुमने किया वादा अपना भुलाया है तुमने तमाचे न मारो मुसलमानों जाओ अली को बुलाओ अकेली है ज़हरा रोने पे पहरा मसाइब का सहरा अकेली है ज़हरा बयां किससे जाकर करूं दर्द अपना है गैरों की दुनिया नहीं कोई अपना कोई जाके बाबा से कह दो ये जाकर के ले जाओ आकर अकेली है ज़हरा रोने पे पहरा मसाइब का सहरा अकेली है ज़हरा ए लख्ते जिगर हसन बिन हैदर ये नाना के पहलू मैं सोने न देंगे ए लख्ते जिगर हसन बिन हैदर ये नाना के पहलू मैं सोने न देंगे तुम आ जाना पहलू मैं सो जाना माँ के बकी में यहाँ पर अकेली है ज़हरा रोने पे पहरा मसाइब का सहरा अकेली है ज़हरा शहे करबला ने कहा रोके माँ से ये मजलूम बेटे ने मजलूम माँ से शहे करबला ने कहा रोके माँ से ये मजलूम बेटे ने मजलूम माँ से अकेला हूँ मैं भी अकेली है ज़ैनब अकेले है बाबा अकेली है ज़हरा रोने पे पहरा मसाइब का सहरा अकेली है ज़हरा सरे मर्ग अख्तर था ज़हरा का नोहा कब आओगे महदी कब आओगे बेटा सरे मर्ग अख्तर था ज़हरा का नोहा कब आओगे महदी कब आओगे बेटा खुदा के लिए अब ये पर्दा हटा दो चले आओ आओ अकेली है ज़हरा रोने पे पहरा मसाइब का सहरा अकेली है ज़हरा रोने पे पहरा मसाइब का सहरा अकेली है ज़हरा सल्लु अला मोहम्मद व आले मोहम्मद
अल्लाहुम्मा सल्लि अला मोहम्मद व आले मोहम्मद पर मोहम्मद व आले मोहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु अल्लाहुम्मा सल्लि अला मोहम्मद व आले मोहम्मद आज भी ज़ैनब की आती है सदा भाई हुसैन आज भी ज़ैनब की आती है सदा भाई हुसैन तेरा चेहरा तेरी आँखें भूल कब पाई हुसैन आज भी ज़ैनब की आती है सदा भाई हुसैन चलते ना कैसे गिराया खुद को जलती रेत पर चलते ना कैसे गिराया खुद को जलती रेत पर घुटनियों के भल में तेरी लाश तक आई हुसैन बह रहे थे आँख से आंसू तेरी रुखसात के वक्त बह रहे थे आँख से आंसू तेरी रुखसात के वक्त फिर कोई आंसू न टपका आँख पथराई हुसैन तेरा चेहरा तेरी आँखें भूल कब पाई हुसैन आज भी ज़ैनब की आती है सदा भाई हुसैन, बस में घबरा खंजर तुझ पे चलता देख कर, बस में घबरा थी खंजर तुझ पे चलता देख कर, फिर किसी मुश्किल में घिर कर मैं न घबराई हुसैन, दूर उफ़ता दा सफर से लौट कर मैंने नवेद, दूर उफ़ता दा सफर से लौट कर मैंने नवेद, ठंडा पानी जब पिया बस तेरी याद आई हुसैन, आज भी ज़ैनब की आती है सदा भाई हुसैन। मोहम्मद
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. May I request you all to recite one Surah Al-Fatiha for all our marhumin, especially for all those marhumins who don't have anybody to recite Surah Al-Fatiha for Al-Fatiha.
رحم الله من قرأ سورة المباركة الفاتحة. بسم الله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله بارئ الخلائق الأجمعين، باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء حبيب قلوبنا وشفيع ذنوبنا أبي القاسم محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
ثم الصلاة والسلام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين، لا سيما حجة الله في أرضه وبقية الله في أرضه مولانا صاحب الأمر والزمان.
اللهم صل على محمد.
روح روحي وأرواح العالمين له الفداء ولعنة الله على أعدائهم وعلى منكري فضائلهم ومن شرك في ولايتهم ومن غصب حقهم من الأولين والآخرين إلى قيام يوم الدين آمين رب العالمين. أما بعد، قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد وعجل فرجه. فاطمة روحي التي بين جنبين صدق النبي وآمنا به. زينوا مجالسكم بذكر محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
أحبائي, in regards to our ma'rifah of Sayyidat Nisa al-Alameen, we are only able to understand and execute our responsibilities towards Sayeda Fatima Al Zahra alayha salam to the extent of the ma'rifah that we have of Sayeda Fatima alayha salam. Yani, the greater your understanding, the greater your ma'rifah of Sayeda Zahra, the greater or the better you will understand what your responsibilities towards Sayeda Zahra are. If you didn't understand or you don't have her ma'rifah, you will not understand what your responsibilities are. The extent of your responsibilities is dependent on the extent of your ma'rifah. And on the other hand, understanding your responsibility is one thing. And then there is executing your responsibility, yani amal, yani action. Your execution, your actions in terms of your service towards Sayyidah Fatima Al Zahra is contingent upon the ma'rifah of Sayyidah Zahra alayhi salam. The more a person has ma'rifah of Sayyidah Zahra, the more he will understand the magnitude of the responsibility that lies upon him in regards to the wilayah of Sayyidah Zahra alayha salam and service towards Sayyidah Zahra. If we understand this as a muqaddimah or as an opening statement, tonight I would like to discuss with you one element of the fada'il or one element of the superiority of Sayyidah Zahra, the merits of Sayyidah Zahra. And by understanding her merits, we are able to understand our role and our responsibility towards her, keeping in mind the delicateness of the situation when it comes to speaking about the oppression and the madlumiyat of Sayyidah Zahra. Ruhi laha al-fida. شوفوا أحبائي, hadith al-sharif, which is narrated, hadith al-sharif, which is narrated in the book Mustadrak Safinatul Bihar, on authority of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil faraja. This hadith al-sharif, Rasulullah himself describes Sayyidah Fatima alayha salam. Sometimes to understand the divine personality, a ma'soom personality, we have few options. Either you understand the merit of this divine personality from the Quran, where the one describing the ma'soom is Allah Azza wa Jal. Sometimes you can understand the personality of a ma'soom through another ma'soom. And thirdly, You can try and understand the personality of a ma'asum through the words of other scholars and other historians who are non-ma'asum. The highest grade of ma'rifah is the one that is taken from either the creator of the universe or another ma'asum appointed by the creator of the universe. So when it comes to the ma'rifah of Sayeda Zahra, is there anyone better to learn who is Zahra than from Rasulullah himself? فشوفوا حديث الشريف. Rasulullah introduces Sayeda Zahra to the world. Inta, ya Shi'i, Inta, ya Muslim, leave Muslim, the human nation, humanity as a whole, if you want to understand Sayeda Zahra, look at how Abbas Zahra himself discusses or describes Zahra. He says, Wa amma binti Fatima. As for my daughter Fatima, فإنها سيدة نساء العالمين من الأولين والآخرين. As for my daughter Fatima, she is the master of all women from the times of the past and in the times of the future to come. سيدة نساء العالمين. The most pure, the most chaste, the highest level of superiority that can be bestowed by Allah on any person, on any woman from the beginning of time to the end of time, Sayyidah Fatima. Meaning what? Superiority of Sayyidah Hawa on one side as the mother of humanity, on top of her Sayyidah Fatima. Superiority of Sayyida Maryam, who Allah selected and purified. On one hand, the superiority of Zahra on top of Sayyida Maryam. He goes on to say, وَهِيَ بَذَعَةٌ مِنِّي. Rasulullah says, Fatima is a part of me, my flesh and my blood. Now, when you have these sorts of description by Rasulullah, this is not an emotional description in the relations of a relationship, yani in the sense of it's a relationship between father and daughter. وَمَا يَنْتِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ. Rasulullah does not speak out of vain or out of empty emotion. Rather, everything is inspiration through revelation. For bada'atum minni, yes, the biological connection on one side. Fatima is a part of me, meaning just like the way you have within the hadith. Rasulullah says this deen Islam was built through my flesh and my blood. And he says, Fatima, you are a part of me. And this Islam, Fatima, is made of your flesh and your blood in the way that it is made from my flesh and my blood. They put flesh and blood equity into building this deen. Fatima is just as much of a part of this. وَهِيَ نُورُ عَيْنِي. Rasulullah says, Fatima, you are the light of my eyes, the source of eternal happiness and comfort. Hadith al-Sharif goes on. I will summarize to the part which is what we want to concentrate on. Rasulullah goes on to say, مَتَى قَامَتْ فِي مِحْرَابِهَا بين يدي ربها جل جلاله زهر نورها لملائكة السماء. Every time Sayeda Zahra stood on the musalla in a state of salat, whenever Sayeda Zahra stood up to pray to her Lord, a nur and a light illuminated for Sayeda Zahra, a light that illuminated into the heavens for the angels. Look at what Rasulullah goes on to say. كما يظهر نور الكواكب لأهل الأرض. Have you noticed on a clear night, in a pitch dark sky, when the stars are scattered across the dark sky, so long these lights twinkle and sparkle and illuminate the sky? Rasulullah says, when Sayeda Fatima stands for Salat, the heavens are illuminated for the Malaika in the way the stars illuminate the skies for the human population. There is something to think about over here. Fiqh of Hadith, contemplation on Hadith. See, number one, Fatima alayha salam is a source of nur for the Malaika. Where are the Malaika dwelling? Malaika ahsant in Jannah, Malaika in the 7 heavens, Malaika in the 7 skies. And in fact, according to some of the tradition that we have, the Malaika themselves are made of nur. And in this realm of the 7 heavens and the 7 skies and in paradise itself, let me ask you a question. Is there darkness in the paradise and in the 7 heavens? There is no darkness. There is light upon light. So in a realm of existence which is encompassed with light over light, the light of Fatima illuminates that light. Like the way Rasulullah says, show the stars in a dark sky. The sky is dark and the stars illuminate the sky. The nur of the Malaika and the nur of the heavens in comparison to the nur of Fatima is like darkness. You get the radiance and the illumination that emanates from Sayyidatin Nisa'il Alam. This is one. Number 2. Ahna Bani Adam. When you go out into the open sky, under the open sky at night, dark pitch black, and the stars are scattered into the sky. Have you ever gone on a clear night and you really look into the skies? Do you know we have within the hadith an hour's worth of contemplation is equivalent to a year's worth of worship. We have within the hadith. 1 hour of contemplation is equivalent to 1 year's entire year, without disruption, without breaks to go to the washroom and to eat and to sleep and this and that. An entire, imagine 365 days, 24 hours a day, you're in a state of salat and ruku and sajda. Rasulullah says 1 hour of contemplation on the signs and on the creation of Allah is better than the salat of that entire year. For what is matlub is sometimes when you have these clear nights, you go out under the black sky, you look at the stars and you contemplate over it, it leads you towards Allah. You get mesmerized by the beauty of the stars. Try this. You sit under the open sky one night and just look at the stars. You get mesmerized. If we understand this, every time Sayeda Fatima Al Zahra stands up for Salat, the Malaika are mesmerized with the nur of Fatima. Look at what the hadith goes on to say. We come back to our hadith. You are in this alam al-nur. And this alam in Noor has become illuminated with the Noor of Fatima. What chaos may have happened, or what chaos happens in the heavens? As a result of this Noor illuminating of the heavens, Rasulullah says, وَيَقُولُ اللَّهُ عَزَّ وَجَلِّ مَلَائِكَتِهِ. Every time Sayeda Zahra stands for Salat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addresses the Malaika. Ya Malaikati, O my angels, unzuru ila amati Fatima, Sayyidati Imai. Allah Azza wa Jal commands the Malaika, O my angels, look at my slave Fatima. Amati, the word Ama, is the feminine equivalent of the word Abd. For how in Tashahud you say, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh? The feminine equivalent of Abd is Ama. Allah Azza wa Jal says to the Malaika, look at my slave Fatima. قائمة بين يدي ترتعد فرائسها من خيفتي. She is in a state where her entire being is submitting to my grandeur. وَقَدْ أَقْبَلَتْ بِقَلْبِهَا عَلَى عِبَادَتِهِ. And she's engrossed in my worship with her heart. Her entire heart is submerged with my love. What is Allah Azza wa Jal doing in essence? Reciting the Fada'il of Fatima for the Malaika. When Allah recites the Fada'il of Fatima, you understand the value of this lady Fatima. But Malaika, do you know the Malaika in the heavens are tasked with acts of worship that they are continuously supposed to be in? Allah Azza wa Jal disrupts the acts of worship. When I say disrupt over here, I mean he puts a stop to their acts of worship such that they can hear him recite the Fada'il of Fatima. Fiqh al-Hadith. To read the Hadith is one thing, to understand the Hadith is one thing. Shufu what Allah Azza wa Jal goes on to say. Ushhidukum. Allah Azza wa Jal says to the Malaika, I make you witness. Anni kad amantu shi'ataha minan nar. Allah Azza wa Jal says, O angels, bear witness that I have granted safety, aman, safety to the Shias of Fatima. Every time Sayeda Zahra stands up in Salat, the heavens get illuminated, and every time she stands up for Salat, the Allah Azza wa Jal renews an oath with the Malaika that he has made Fatima a passage of safety for her Shia. Who is this Fatima? A source of safety for her Shias and for her lovers. Do you understand this? Hadith Sharif states, Hadith on authority of what is at the top of my mind, on the authority of Imam Mohamed al-Baqir, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa Muhammad. He says, Sayeda Fatima Al Zahra on the day of judgment, The entire human nation will be in the mahshar. Allah Azza wa Jal will call out for Sayeda Fatima to enter into Jannah. Rasulullah, Amir al-Mu'mineen, and the rest of the A'imma are on pulpits, members of Noor on the mahshar. And Allah will call out for Sayeda Fatima to enter into Jannah. So she will come out escorted by thousands of angels surrounding her. And Jibreel will cry out in the mahshar, "O people, Fatima, the daughter of Mohammed, is entering into Jannah. Lower your heads out of respect." The entire creation bows down and lowers their head out of respect. Sayeda Fatima Al Zahra comes through the mahshar and she is granted passage into heaven. Know the value of whose lady, with this woman whose Azar you are commemorating today. And you begin to understand the importance of this Fatimiya and the first Fatimiya. What does Fatima mean to you? She enters into the mahshar, she walks through the mahshar. She comes, the hadith says, Imam al-Baqir Ruhi Lahul Fida says, she comes to the door of Jannah, the entrance of Jannah, and she stops. Aji, Jannah. This Jannah was created from your Noor, Ya Zahra. Why the reluctance to enter? Why the stop? Why the hesitation? Allah Azza wa Jal asa, "O Fatima, why do you not enter into Jannah?" To paraphrase, she says, "Ya Allah, I wish for creation to know my worth and my value today." Meaning what? Creation doesn't know the worth and the value of Sayeda Zahra. And the fact that we don't even commemorate the first Fatimiya officially is the greatest attestation that we don't know her worth. She turns around. She says, "I wish for my worth to be known, my value to be known." You know the response of the Lord of the universe. Allah Azza wa Jal, As-Samad Al-Ahad, Lam Yalid wa Lam Yulad wa Lam yakun lahu kufuwan ahad. The Lord of Fatima says, "Fatima, enter into the mahshar and look into the hearts of anyone who is from your Shias or from your lovers and bring them with you into heaven." Do you know what Imam al-Baqir says? Ruhi Lahul Fida. He says, "I swear by the Lord, Fatima will enter into the mahshar, and anyone who is from her Shias or from her lovers, min shi'atiha wa muhibbiha." And there is a difference between the Shia of Fatima and the lover of Fatima. Shia is a very high maqam. Shia is like Muhammad Salman al-Muhammadi. Shia is like Ammar ibn Yasir. Shia is like Abu Dhar. Then there are lovers. Imam al-Baqir says, "I swear by Allah, just like the way the hen," have you seen a hen when it picks seeds from the ground and it separates between the good seeds and the bad seeds, it picks them one by one. Sayeda Zahra will go into the mahshar one by one, from the beginning of creation to the end of creation. Whoever has had love for her in her heart, she will take them to the door of Jannah. The hope in a majlis like this is, Ya Zahra, Ya bint Rasulullah. Our wish is that while we are in our kafans, raised in the mahshar, with our deeds in front of us and our fate unknown because of our sins, Ya Zahra, by the sake of these majalis, you come and lead us into Jannah. Lead our progenies into Jannah, our parents and our children. But Fatima is madluma. You see this hadith give you, before I make my point, the grandeur of Fatima. So we said we can only understand the extent of our duties towards Sayeda Zahra to the extent of the ma'rifah that we have of Sayeda Zahra. The more ma'rifah you have of her, the more you understand your duties and your responsibilities towards her. So you understand the ma'rifah of Sayeda Zahra. Number one, she's a source of illumination for the heavens. Number two, you understand that Allah has made her a source of safety for the Shias. Her lovers, her Shias have safety and passage and the aman in the dunya as well as in the akhirah. But have a look at this. Who is this Zahra? Hadith says that every time she stood up in salat, the heavens light up. Sahih? What was she doing standing up in salat? Do you know we have hadith that says Sayeda Fatima Al Zahra would stand up in salat for the entirety of the night, and the extent to which she would stand in salat, she would stand to the extent that her feet would become swollen. Anyone tried reciting the 100 rakat salat in Laylatul Qadr? Seen the difficulty of reciting 100 rakat salah? And that even, I can speak for myself, if we recite 100 rakat salah, we recite it on an express avenue. But imagine standing an entire night from midnight to Fajr in salat, day in, day out, swelling of the feet. Entom, Shabab, you have had the honor and the pleasure of walking to Karbala. You know how difficult it is when your foot gets swollen to continue the walk, to even put weight on your feet. Sayyidah Zahra's feet used to be swollen from salat. You understand this? I take the masala forward. Why would she stand in salat until her feet get swollen? Or if you and I were to stand in salat until our feet got swollen, what would we be doing? Forgiveness, perhaps. Increase in ma'rifah, perhaps. You know what Sayyidah Zahra used to do? Sayyidah Zahra would stand up in prayer the entire night, seeking the hajat of the people around her in Medina and beyond. Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba says, I saw my mother on a Thursday night in a state of dua and salat until the time of Fajr, and she did dua for every single household from the Ansar and the Muhajirin, and she didn't pray for any one of us inside of the house. Imam al-Mujtaba says, I said to my mother, Mother, do you not pray for us like the way you pray for our neighbors? The response of Sayyidah Zahra, Ajjar thumma dar. First the neighbors and then the household. For a woman so pure, so delicate, so innocent, so generous, who illuminates the heavens, stands up in salat until her feet are swollen so she can do dua for people like you and me and the Muslim Ummah. This is Fatima. She did this for us, and she's a source of shafa'ah for us on the Day of Judgment. What is my duty towards her? Think about this. How selfless a person should be to spend an entire night, and this is not a one-off situation, every night, to stand up in salat at the expense of having your own feet swollen for somebody else's hajat to be accepted. How grand is that ruh? Fatima ruhi allati bayna jambay. Rasulullah says, Fatima is the ruh in my chest. And Allah says in the Quran to Rasulullah, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. Ya Rasulullah, you're a rahmah for this universe. Rasulullah says, I am rahmah, Fatima is my soul. You want to see the soul of the rahmah? She stands in salat till her feet are swollen so that your hajat get accepted. What is my duty towards Fatima? Alayha salam. With a woman so pure, so innocent, so delicate, so generous, who did all this for the Muslim Ummah. How did the Muslim Ummah repay Fatima? Sayeda Fatima Al Zahra is madloom till today. Madloom by the outsiders and madloom even from those in the insiders. How ajib is this dunya? How strange is this world in which we live? That today, if you were to advocate and shed light on the oppression of Sayeda Fatima Al Zahra, in the manner in which she was killed and assaulted, it leads towards violence. You talk about who killed Sayeda Fatima Al Zahra, people get killed on one hand. On the other hand, you have from the insiders, sometimes, I'll be honest, because this is our duty towards Sayeda Zahra. You have platforms where you are straight up forbidden from reciting or talking about the oppression of Sayeda Fatima Al Zahra. So-called Shia institutions. They give you 1,001 conditions and they tell you, Sheikhna, you're welcome, come. But please, do not talk about these issues. Haji. I says to them, why? They say, we don't like to promote sectarianism from our pulpits. But let me ask you a question. And ask your souls, your heart, look deep into your heart with all honesty. If a person has a conscience, and keep in mind this hadith of Sayeda Zahra and what she means to us, and ask yourself, in which world religion, in which history does advocating for the rights of an oppressed person result or be equivalent to sectarianism? In which world? In which religion? On this logic, should I go back and remove all the verses of Fir'aun from the Quran? On the logic that if I speak about the crimes of Fir'aun and what Fir'aun did to the people of Bani Israel, I am inciting hate towards the Egyptian people or the Egyptian civilization. And in order to not cause violence towards the Egyptian people, we should cut out the stories of Fir'aun. Does that make sense? When you advocate for the rights of an oppressed, how can the victim of oppression be held guilty for advocating for the rights of the oppressed? Look at how strange the world we live in has become. Enter you're the victim. and you were crying out in a non-violent manner, using historical sources that are backed with proof. A Muslim nation, this is the daughter of Rasulullah. Till today, 1400 years, nobody knows where the qabr of Sayeda Fatima is. Can we investigate what happened to her such that she died at the age of 18? You're sectarian for doing that. I'm non-violent. I'm asking for truth. I'm advocating for the woman who is going to be the source of my intercession on the day of judgment. I am advocating for a soul so pure, her feet were swollen because she spent nights doing dua for our hajat to be accepted. Madluma. The failure to even acknowledge the first Fatimiya shows our shortfall in regards to Sayeda Fatima Al Zahra. Because we have traditions that narrate Sayeda Zahra alayha salam gained martyrdom 40 days after the martyrdom of Rasulullah. And people will come and there will be discussions that all this hadith is a da'if and so on and so forth. Number one, historical dates of birth and death, the accuracy of these or the reliability of these hadith is not dependent on a chain of narrations. Number two, da'if means what? Da'if, yani weak, meaning that there is a probability that the date given could be right or could be wrong. It's a 50-50 chance. Doesn't mean that you discount it 100%. Doesn't mean it's a fabrication. So long as there is a 50-50 chance, does the mind tell you gamble and not commemorate this, keeping in mind that she is a source of safety for her Shia? Even mathematically, the choice is wrong. Person might come and say, before I move to the next point, I'll tell you in my humble opinion, perhaps the hadith that state that Sayeda Zahra gained martyrdom after 40 days perhaps has the highest level of possibility. Do you know why? Because of the extent of the injuries that she suffered. Speak to anyone within the medical field. Punctured lung, broken rib, miscarriage, multiple assaults on the body. How long or what is the possibility of a person who has endured these sorts of injuries that she will not or she will live greater than 40 days? And this is physical pain. Then there is the pain in the heart that the haqq of Amir has been usurped and the religion of Rasulullah has been turned inside out. This is grief. In any case, person might come and say, Sheikhuna, commemorating the first Fatimiya. No, we already commemorate the Fatimiya in Jamad al-Awwal and Jamad al-Thani. And when you commemorate the first Fatimiya, it coincides also, first of all, it coincides with the wiladat of the 11th Imam. So We would rather celebrate the wiladat of Imam al-Askari because there are still 2 other Fatimiyas to come. See, we have to be rational and logical in our thinking. I give you an example. Allah give, Azza wa Jal, give all your family members a long and a healthy life. But imagine in my house, it is my son's birthday. And on his birthday, my father passes away, for example. So his grandfather passes away. On my son's birthday, my father passes away. I have a birthday and I have a death day on the same day. Logically, what does the mind tell you? Delay the funeral and celebrate the birthday? People will laugh on you. They laugh on you. People say you are not human, Aslan. It says, delay the birthday, celebrate the birthday later, we commemorate the funeral first. Sahih Lola? There is a human rule of thumb that on a certain day, if you have an event of grief and an event of happiness, you delay the happiness and you bring forth the day of grief. This is a normal thing. All human beings, Aslan, it is fitrah. I remember, some time back, you had from within our friends, he graduated from university. Supposed to be a massive day of celebration. But his friend's parent passed away on the day of the graduation. Does it make sense for him to go and celebrate the graduation and leave the death? He said, no, death and the commemoration of death takes priority over the celebration of happiness. It's the same thing when it comes to the Shahada of Sayeda Fatima Al Zahra and the first Fatimiya. If there is a conflict between Shahada and the Wilada, Shahada takes the priority and the Wilada can be postponed. This is on the assumption that the day of the Wilaya is also on the day of the Shahada of Sayeda Zahra, because we have hadith and historical narrations that also state that the wiladat of Imam al-Hasan al-Askari, Ruhi lahu al-Fida, was on 4th of Rabi'ul Thani, meaning last week. Not on the same days as the Shahada of Sayeda Fatima Al Zahra. And tomorrow is a day that is heavy. The 40th day after the Shahada of Rasulullah. It's a heavy day. Because Sayyidat Nisa al-Alameen, her soul left her body during the time of Salatul Dhuhr. And then the entire people of Medina gathered in the house of Amirul Mu'mineen. Amirul Mu'mineen then told Ammar ibn Yasir, make an announcement to the people to go away, and we will announce the details of the funeral later on. So Ammar made the announcement, the people left, including the shuyukh of Saqifa. In the darkness of the night, Amirul Mu'mineen gave the ghusl and buried Sayeda Fatima Al Zahra. For what is the responsibility of the Shias? If they claim to be from the lovers of Sayeda Fatima Al Zahra and Amirul Mu'mineen, should we not be in a state of aza and acknowledge this Fatimiya? It starts with ma'rifah. All starts with ma'rifah. When you have love for Sayeda Zahra and you feel that attachment towards Sayeda Zahra, you begin to understand your duty and your responsibility towards Sayeda Zahra. The least that we can do. And there is much kalam, inshallah, on this. Second and third Fatimiya, if Allah Azza wa Jal gives us the tawfiq to elaborate on this. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
The tragedy of Sayeda Fatima Al Zahra, the tragedy of Fatima Al Zahra. Upon the martyrdom of Rasulullah, majority of the Ansar and the Muhajirin did not even attend the funeral of the Prophet of Islam. As they fought and they debated amongst themselves who should be the Khalifa of the Muslims, Rasulullah was buried. Amir al-Mu'mineen and Sayeda Fatima Al Zahra, the house of Tahara, the house of Isma, was in a state of aza and grief, weeping over the loss of Rasulullah. On the other hand, in Masjidun Nabawi, Ibn Abi Quhafa had sat upon the mimbar of Rasulullah. So Ibn Sahak says to him, why do you not get the bay'ah from Ali ibn Abi Talib? For indeed, if you do not get the bay'ah from Ali, the legitimacy of your rule shall always be in question. So they sent Kunfud to the house of Sayeda Fatima such that he can bring Ali to the masjid to give bay'ah. 3 times they sent Kunfud, and 3 times he was turned away and sent back to the masjid. On the 3rd time when Kunfud returned, it says to Ibn Sahak and to Ibn Abi Quhafa, Fatima has refused me from entering inside the house, and Ali does not acknowledge that you are the Amir al-Mu'mineen. At this point, Ibn Sahak stood up and said, how dare they speak to us in this way? And what does Fatima as a woman have to do in these sort of affairs? So Ubay ibn Ka'ab says, they gathered from Masjidun Nabawi 300 men with spears and torches in their hands, moving towards the house of Sayeda Fatima Al Zahra. They surrounded her house, 300 men. They placed firewood across the door of Fatima. Umar ibn Khattab then began to bang the door of Fatima, violently crying out, "O Ali, come out and give bay'ah, for indeed you are no different from the rest of the Muslimin. If you do not come out and give the bay'ah, indeed we shall burn down your house upon you." Sayeda Fatima Al Zahra, the narration mentions, was overcome by weakness due to the grief of the loss of her father. She came and she stood behind the door in weakness, heavily pregnant with Mohsen and a bandage around her head. She came and she stood behind the door and she said to him, "O people, what do you want and why do you harass us?" Allah. So Ibn Khattab cried out, "Why does Ali send you behind the door and why does he not come out to meet us?" To which Sayeda Zahra says, "I have come to you behind the door to be a hujjah upon you from Allah Azza wa Jal." They cried to her, they said to her, they shouted, "Tell Ali and tell him to come out and give the bay'ah or we shall burn down the house." Sayyidah Fatima Al Zahra cried out behind the door, "O Rasulullah, do you see how your ummah treats us upon your death?" To this Ibn Sahak said, "O Fatima, Mohamed is here no more and the angels shall not descend down anymore. So tell Ali to come out and give the bay'ah or we shall burn down your house." They said to her, "If you burn down the house, Hassan and Hussein are in the house." He said, "Even if." Fatima said, "Do you not fear Allah?" At this moment, Allah, Yashi'at Fatima, the narration state that they lit the door of Fatima on fire. Sayyidah Fatima Al Zahra says, "I stood behind the burning door. The black smoke began to enter into the house. I was not able to see. I was choking. I was not able to breathe." At this moment, behind the burning door, Ibn Khattab kicked the door with all his might and all his force. Sayyidah Fatima Al Zahra was crushed between the door and the wall. The Maktal says, فَأَسَّرُوهَا أَسْرًا شَدِيدًا بَيْنَ الْبَابِ وَالْجِدَارِ. They crushed her in the most violent manner between the door and the wall. Allah, Allah. The narration narrations mention that when they crushed Sayeda Fatima Al Zahra between the door and the wall, there was a nail that was protruding from the door. Allah, Allah, this nail punctured the lung of Sayeda Fatima Al Zahra. She fell down on the ground, crying out in pain and in grief. Can you hear the pain in the voice of Zahra? She cries out, Ya Rasulallah! Oh my father, Ya Rasulallah! The narrations mention they entered into the house. They entered into the house. Yashia, if you have the heart to listen to this, the taghut of this ummah attacked Sayeda Fatima Al Zahra, and there were 3 attacks that I want to mention to you today. He says the first one, then they entered into the house, he took the sword, and with the sword he hit Sayeda Fatima on the shoulder. Allah. Asma bint Umayr says the bruise on the shoulder of Fatima was there until we buried her. What did Fatima do to deserve this treatment? The second, wallah, this will break your heart. The second, the narration says that Ibn Khattab slapped Fatima across the cheek. The manner in which he slapped Fatima. The manner in which he slapped Fatima. The eye of Fatima was swollen. Our elders in the house used to say, when a person dies, they close both their eyes. But when Fatima left the dunya, she closed only one eye because the other one was swollen from the way she was. Ya Fatima, Ya Fatima. The narration mentions the Maktab when they burned down the door and they crushed her between the door and the wall. They assaulted and they attacked Sayeda Zahra. Allah, he says, the Taghut says himself, when I heard the cry of Fatima, after everything is done, he says, when I heard the cry of Fatima, and this is in his letter to Muawiyah, he says, when I did everything, he said, I heard the cry of Fatima. He says, there was so much pain in the cry of Fatima. He says, there was so much pain in the cry. I don't know if you can imagine, you are men of ghira, you are men of honor. If you can imagine a pregnant woman being assaulted, cry out in grief. This is Fatima, the daughter of Mohamed. He says, I heard so much grief in the cry of Fatima. He says, I was about to turn away. He says, I was about to turn away. But as I turned away, he says, I remembered my hatred for Ali ibn Abi Talib. So I turned around. The Maktab says, he kicked her with all his might. Mohsin became shaheed.
Hussein, Ya 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 Hussein, Bibi ka pulsa diye, Ya Hussein, 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 hey Ya Hussein, 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 hey Ya Hussein, 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 Ya Hussein. Akbar bir diya, Sugra khaira mangdi 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 akbar bir diya, rahat dinaane di tasveer diya, rahat dinaane di tasveer diya, Sugra khaira mangdi akbar bir diya, Sugra khaira mangdi akbar bir diya, Sugra khaira mangdi akbar bir diya, rahat dinaane di tasveer diya, rahat dinaane di tasveer diya, Sugra khaira mangdi akbar bir 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 diya, Sugra khaira मंग दी अकबर वीर दिया सुगरा खैरा मंग दी अकबर वीर दिया सुगरा खैरा मंग दी अकबर वीर दिया जाने रब क्यों मैनू कलिया छड़ गए ने जाने रब क्यों मैनू कलिया छड़ गए ने दिया और बिसाने गाजी दे पीर दिया और बिसाने गाजी दे पीर दिया सुगरा खैरा मंग दी अकबर वीर 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 दिया जाने रब क्यों मैनू कलिया छड़ गए ने जाने रब क्यों मैनू गए ने दिया और बिसरने वासी दे पीर दिया और बिसरने वासी दे पीर दिया सुगरा खैरा मंग दी अकबर वीर 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 दिया सुगरा ने खत लिखिया अपने बाबर नो सुगरा ने खत लिखिया अपने बाबर नो मुबारक अकबर ने जागीर दिया ओ मुबारक अकबर ने जागीर दिया सुगरा खैरा मंग दी अकबर वीर दिया अकबर वीर दिया सुगरा खैरा मंग दी 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 अकबर वीर दिया रावत की नाने दी तस्वीर दिया रावत की नाने दी तस्वीर दिया सुगरा खैरा मंग दी अकबर वीर दिया सुगरा खैरा मंग दी अकबर वीर दिया सुगरा खैरा मंग दी अकबर वीर दिया सुगरा ने खत लिखिया अपने बाबर को सुगरा ने खत लिखिया अपने बाबर को मुबारक अकबर को जागीर दिया ओ मुबारक अकबर को जागीर दिया सुगरा खैरा मंग दी अकबर वीर 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 दिया मेरे प्यो दिया अखिया सारे वीर मेरे प्यो दिया अखिया सारे वीर मेरे अखिया रोशन सदा शबीर दिया, अकिया रोशन खैर सदा शबीर दिया, सबरा खैरा मंग दिया बलबीर 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 दिया, की बेटियों की रिदाए उतर गई, ज़हरा 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 की बेटियों की रिदाए उतर गई, चाँद को सही सदाए कर गई, ज़हरा की बेटियों की रिदाए उतर गई, ज़हरा की बेटियों की रिदाए उतर गई,
माशाअल्लाह
की रिदाए उतर गई, ज़हरा की बेटियों की रिदाए उतर गई, ज़हरा की बेटियों की रिदाए उतर गई, लाशों को रस्सियों में जकड़ कर लिए पिरो, लाशों को रस्सियों में जकड़ कर या तो फिर से निकल के मर गई, ज़हरा की बेटियों की रिदाए उतर 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 गई, ज़हरा बेटियों की रिदाएं उतर गई। ज़हरा की बेटियों की रिदाएं उतर गई। ज़हरा की बेटियों की रिदाएं उतर गई। जुल्म सितम की तेज हवाएं जब चली, जुल्म सितम की तेज हवाएं जब चली, सब गुलशने बतूल की कलियां बिखर गई। ज़हरा की बेटियों की रिदाएं उतर 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 गई। रमलाए पूछती थी सकीना से कैद में, रमलाए पूछती थी सकीना से कैद में, ज़ख्मी कान वालिया बीबी किधर गई। ज़हरा की बेटियों की रिदाएं उतर 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 गई। रमलाए पूछती थी सकीना से कैद में, रमलाए पूछती थी सकीना से कैद में, ज़ख्मी है कान वालिया बीबी किधर गई। ज़हरा की बेटियों की रिदाएं उतर 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 गई। सजाद को ज़ईफ़ सदाएं ये कर गई। ज़हरा की बेटियों की रिदाएं उतर गई। ज़हरा की बेटियों की रिदाएं उतर गई।
गैरत मरियम तेरा बाजार में जाना,
गैरत मरियम तेरा बाजार में जाना, गैरत मरियम तेरा बाजार में जाना, गैरत मरियम तेरा बाजार में जाना, गैरत मरियम तेरा बाजार में जाना, गैरत मरियम
भूल सकेगा इस ताहशर ज़माना गैरत मरियम तेरा बाजार में जाना गैरत मरियम तेरा बाजार में जाना भाई क्यों ज़ैनब कुलसूम की चिनती खरीदाएं क्यों ज़ैनब कुलसूम की चिनती मरियम तेरा बाजार में जाना गैरत मरियम तेरा बाजार में जाना है जिस दर पे सलामी दिया करते है पैगंबर जिस दर पे मरियम तेरा बाजार में जाना गैरत मरियम तेरा बाजार में जाना ना भूल सकेगा इस ताहशर ज़माना गैरत मरियम तेरा बाजार में जाना गैरत मरियम तेरा बाजार में जाना भाई तू दुख्तर ज़हरा है नवासी है नबी की तू दुख्तर ज़हरा है नवासी है नबी की बाजार में सरकार तेरा खुद सुनाना मरियम तेरा बाजार में जाना गैरत मरियम तेरा बाजार में जाना गैरत मरियम तेरा बाजार में जाना गैरत मरियम तेरा बाजार में जाना तेरा बाजार में जाना नींद आई भला कैसे सकीना को ज़मीं पे नींद आई भला कैसे सकीना को ज़मीं पे तूने सिखाया सीखे सुलाना मरियम तेरा बाजार में जाना गैरत मरियम तेरा बाजार में जाना गैरत मरियम तेरा बाजार में जाना गैरत मरियम तेरा बाजार में जाना ना भूल सकेगा इस ताहशर ज़माना गैरत मरियम तेरा बाजार में जाना गैरत मरियम तेरा बाजार में जाना इश्क़ ज़हरा या ज़हरा या ज़हरा या ज़हरा या ज़हरा या ज़हरा محسن يا محسن يا محسن يا محسن يا محسن يا محسن عشق حیدر یا حیدر یا حیدر یا حیدر یا حیدر یا حیدر یا حیدر عشق محسن یا محسن یا محسن یا محسن یا محسن یا محسن یا محسن عشق زهرا یا زهرا یا زهرا یا زهرا یا زهرا یا زهرا عشق زینب یا زینب یا زینب یا زینب یا زینب یا زینب یا زینب عشق حسن یا حسن یا حسن یا حسن یا حسن یا حسن یا حسن عشق حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین عشق مهدی یا مهدی یا مهدی یا مهدی یا مهدی یا مهدی یا مهدی عشق زهرا یا زهرا یا زهرا یا زهرا یا زهرا یا زهرا یا زهرا صلى محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد